Hi, welcome to Left Foot Media. My name is Brendan Malone. Well, one of the things that I think the US presidential election has exposed is just how dysfunctional and untrustworthy the mainstream media has now become. You can no longer rely on them as a source of unbiased, balanced reporting and information. You just can't, and this election has really proved that more than anything else. And that is really quite problematic. So, for example, during the election cycle, I think the mainstream media, at one point, they definitely got caught up in this absurd idea that Trump was Hitler. And so they had to do everything in their power to try and stop him from being elected. And I think that was also combined with the fact that they just got caught up in this absurd identity politics about the potential of having Hillary Clinton as the first female president. And so they decided that they had to push this line about, making history and everything else, instead of asking the important question of whether or not she was actually the right woman for the job. And if they'd actually asked that question, I think they would have come up with a resounding no. She's probably not the right candidate for the job, but they weren't asking that question because they were so obsessed with this idea that we must have a female president. We must get this woman elected to the presidency because that somehow is ticking another box on the identity politics list. The problem was it wasn't actually serving the interests of democracy, and it certainly wasn't good journalism. So while they were becoming obsessed with trying to discredit Trump in every possible way, they weren't asking some big and important questions about this election and about Hillary Clinton. So, for example, no one seemed too interested in really probing that deeply about how she came to amass such a large personal wealth, despite the fact that she was engaged in public service. No one thought to really probe and question the fact that over the 2014-2015 period, she was paid $12 million in speaking fees, and no one thought to really ask whether or not this might actually have a bearing on how she would govern if she was elected president, and whether or not there are special interests that would actually control her presidency as a result. No one seemed to want to probe that too closely. No one seemed to want to ask important questions that swirled around her campaign. Like, for example, how the heck could Planned Parenthood, which is a taxpayer-funded organisation, afford to spend $20 million in electioneering for a political candidate? That means one of two things. Either there is some sort of Ponzi scheme / shell company going on here where taxpayer money is being rorted and then used for electioneering purposes via this publicly funded organisation. Or this publicly funded organisation is actually a lot more lucrative and doesn't need at least $20 million that they spend on Hillary Clinton worth of taxpayer money that was actually given to them. And so taxpayer money was being wasted here. No one thought to really ask that question, which I think is kind of an important question to be asking. And then last night, no one in the media still seems to have actually asked the question as to why Hillary Clinton didn't actually show up to thank all of her supporters and volunteers and workers who turned up to Clinton HQ. These are people who poured blood, sweat and tears into campaigning for this woman. And she didn't even turn out. Now, I can understand maybe she didn't want to give a concession speech last night, but surely she could have walked out onto that stage and said, look, I'm going to give my concession speech tomorrow, but for now, I just want to thank all of you for the blood, sweat and tears that you have poured into this campaign and all the faith that you have shown in me, etc., etc. She didn't do that. These are the very people who actually gave hours and hours and hours of their time, invested themselves and probably lost a lot of sleep trying to get her elected, and she didn't even walk out on the podium even for a couple of minutes and just say thank you to those people for what they'd done for her. But the media doesn't really seem to have probed that and asked that important question. Remember, this is a campaign that was built on the whole slogan, I'm with her. Well, last night kind of made it look like she wasn't really with you if you're a Clinton supporter. In the meantime, though, as I said, the media went all out and pulled out all of the stops to demonize Trump, to try and paint him as Hitler, and to go after anyone who dared to suggest that they trusted him in the role more than, or they thought that he was a safer choice when compared with the option of Hillary Clinton. The media didn't really probe it all as they should have when Hillary Clinton called Trump supporters a basket of deplorables. Well, as the election has now shown, that's a very, very large basket of deplorables. But no one in the media thought to question why a candidate or whether a candidate should actually even be making that statement. No one thought to actually ask and probe in the media what that statement indicates about her and what sort of presidency that she was going to be running. Instead, in the meantime, they were running a very vitriolic anti-Trump campaign. They became a propaganda arm. I'm going to give you 3 examples now that come from my country here in New Zealand. We're a world away from America, and yet this is how our mainstream media chose to cover these particular events. This is a newspaper front page that was printed yesterday morning, the day of the election, by the New Zealand Herald, which is the largest print newspaper in New Zealand. They are one of our 2 major media players in the print arena, and this is what they chose to run as their front page cover on their print edition yesterday. Before a single vote has been tallied, this is what they ran on their front page. But it gets worse. Later in the day, when it became clear that there was a pretty good chance that Trump was going to win this thing, this is what they posted on their homepage as the main banner headline article, which is the prime spot. It is the key spot on their news website homepage. This is what they chose to publish as the banner headline article and photo. Whatever this is not journalism. This is definitely not journalism. You are showing to people that you cannot be trusted as an impartial source when you print this stuff, but believe it or not, that wasn't the worst of it. Their main competitor in New Zealand is stuff.co.nz, which is basically Fairfax Media, and they have a whole lot of print newspapers in their stable, and they run a news website, and obviously they have all the social media that goes along with it. And this is what they posted on their Facebook page after it was announced that Donald Trump had won the election. Just think about this for a second. This is a news organisation, but this is not news. This is propaganda, pure and simple. There is absolutely no balance. This thing is riddled with bias. It is as biased as you can get. And it is such absurd hyperbole. It is just insane. Whoever the editor was that signed off on this, I think seriously they should be considering resigning this morning after allowing this to be published. I think the person who created this and put this online should be being reprimanded today for doing this. Because this calls into question the integrity of you as a media organisation. It says to everyone in the public, you cannot be trusted to report fairly and accurately on very big and important issues. You are no longer the fourth estate. You have become a propaganda wing of an ideology or a political party. You are now politically and ideologically invested, and you are allowing that political and ideological investment to dictate what information you are putting into the public arena. This is a very, very serious failing, and my hope that one thing that comes out of this election cycle is that the media will now do some very, very serious soul searching about how unjournalistic they have actually become. Now please understand me, I've got friends and people I know who are good, honest journalists, who take their profession seriously, they care about journalistic ethics, and it shows in their work, and they are committed to doing that. This is not about them and the other journalists who are at the coalface trying hard to maintain ethical journalism. This is about the whole edifice, journalism as a profession, and how it has been brought into disrepute, and how this election has proved that the reason people consider journalism so untrustworthy now is because media has actually become very untrustworthy. They have done this themselves. They have made this bed and they now have to lie in it. And I think and I hope that they realise how serious this is. Because if they just don't care and they carry on, as long as I'm getting paid and as long as I'm able to have a platform to spout my ideology, I don't care what I'm doing, then this is very, very problematic. Because basically a good, healthy, functioning democracy and a good, healthy, stable society requires the media to actually be the fourth estate. We need them to actually provide proper accountability. But there is no proper accountability when they have simply become a propaganda organisation. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time on Left Foot Media.